Good afternoon, scaredy cats. Hope you enjoy the video today and please like, comment, and subscribe.
Bad Ouija board. This happened maybe about 6 months ago when my 13-year-old sister and 3 of her friends stayed at our house for the night. My sister, Heather, and her friends Jana, Chloe, and Shannon all thought it would be fun to do a Ouija board. I've always been interested in the paranormal, though it does scare me quite a bit. I had always stayed strong to my don't ever touch a Ouija board. They're nothing but trouble theory, but my sister begged me, saying 4 of them were not generating enough energy. I reluctantly agreed, but first spent about an hour researching how to protect yourself from bad spirits. We then lit several white tea lights around the bedroom, chose a glass, and sat around the board. My sister and I are both Catholic, but have never been to church outside of school masses. There were 5 of us touching the glass the entire time, and it only just occurred to me when writing this, that when seated around the board, we looked like an out-of-shape pentagram. Should that make any difference? After a few contacts, we had one that started to play up. The glass stopped moving for a while, despite us asking questions, so we decided to say goodbye. Then out of nowhere, the glass moved toward the edge of the board. For those who know about Ouija boards, must know about the various ways that entities can escape after the movement. My sister's friend Chloe freaked out and tore her hand off the glass. I was about to take my hand off it too, when out of nowhere the glass tipped up and nearly fell over. Quickly, I put my fingers on the glass, moved it to goodbye, and flipped the board over. I looked up at Heather, who seemed to be in shock. She was staring straight into my eyes, not moving or blinking. Chloe, who was sitting next to her, nudged Heather and she still didn't move. I asked, "Are you okay?" Told her to stop it now, this isn't funny. Still no response. After about 20 to 30 seconds, Heather took in a deep gasp and her hands flew up to her throat in what looked like an attempt to strangle herself. 5 seconds passed with her gasping for breath. When she finally calmed down and asked what had happened, I still thought she was mucking around, and I replied, "Oh, as if you don't know." To which she said, "No, I seriously have no idea what the hell happened. All I saw was black." By now I was really scared, so we all went outside and ripped the board up and burned the pieces. After that, Heather said she felt relieved, like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. We went back inside, sat in the kitchen, and talked about it. Heather had told me the last time Jana stayed over that she and her mother could both see ghosts out of nowhere. Jana looked up towards Heather's bedroom and said, "A man with no shirt on and brown hair just walked into your bedroom." Needless to say, I won't touch a Ouija board again. Does anyone have any insight to what it might have been? Bedroom scares. I would like to start off by saying that I do not use drugs, smoke, or drink. I am a young wife and mother with no mental health issues. My experiences started quite a number of years ago. Before I was married, it started off quite innocently. Small things such as whispers or shadows out of the corner of my eye. I began to lose items that would disappear, then reappear where I had originally left them. One example of this was my license. I always place it in my handbag in one of the zipper compartments. One day I opened up my bag to find it missing. I hadn't been anywhere, so it must be somewhere in my room, I thought. I tore apart my whole bedroom looking for it. At the time, I lived with my mother and asked her about it, but she said she hadn't seen it. I searched the house for weeks and weeks, finally giving up and decided to report it as lost and get a new one. A day later, I opened up the same bag I had originally put it in, and there it was exactly where I left it. I literally turned the bag inside out looking for it previously, so there is no way I could have missed it, especially since it was staring at me so. Obviously, please note, I do not have any siblings and was living with my older mother alone. No one had access into our house to pull a prank on me like this. Not long after that, I began to wake up during the night to what sounded like dishes, plates being thrown next to me and shattering. Upon inspecting my bedroom and kitchen to see if anything had fallen, nothing would be out of place, let alone shattered or broken. After a few weeks, the crashing sound stopped and I began to hear voices. I woke up from a deep sleep at around 4 a.m. one morning to the sound of my mother's voice. "Come out here," or "Come here," is what I heard every night. I would close and lock my bedroom door before going to sleep, but obviously I could still see the crack under the door that light would shine through if any lights were on outside my bedroom anyway. I heard my mother's voice and looked toward the closed door where the voice was coming from. I immediately noticed that there was no lights on outside my room. I don't know how to describe what I was feeling at this point, but it was dreadful. It was a bad feeling. Now the voice was my mother's. But something was completely off about it. It seemed to lack the tone or emotion that my mother would speak with. I decided not to answer or go outside my bedroom to investigate. I had the creeps by this point. The next morning, I asked my mother why she was at my bedroom door the following night. She said she had not been downstairs all night, let alone at my door. A few weeks later, the same kind of scenario happened. Woke up from a deep sleep to a voice. This time it was a woman's voice in a strange accent calling my name, except I was not pronouncing it properly. After all this had happened, I was feeling very negative, and it was beginning to take its toll on me. I started having horrible nightmares about dogs and snakes with red eyes chasing me. I would also dream of an awful-looking woman demon. On another occasion, I felt the sensation of something touching my leg, followed by a feeling of a mild electric shock. One night I was sobbing in bed, upset about everything that was happening plus a few other things that were going on. I began to have thoughts of harming myself and heard something whisper, "Just do it." Now I really felt like something was attacking me mentally, almost as if it wanted to see something bad happen to me. After this experience, I went to a psychologist and psychiatrist and told him about the episodes of the voices. I had brain scans performed on me, and the results were completely normal. He didn't have an explanation for me and said there was nothing wrong with me. It took me over a year to have the courage to sleep with the lights off again. These experiences really took a toll on me. A restaurant poltergeist. I have experienced many strange things, including apparitions as a tween and unexplained movements by inanimate objects as a teenager, but the following story clinches it for me when it comes to believing in ghosts. One of my first jobs with any real responsibility was as the cook at the first Cajun Creole restaurant in town on Bardstown Road, Cornucopia, in the Louisville Highlands. Prior to becoming Cornucopia, it was an antique store owned by an older woman who reportedly died in her apartment above the business, and before the renaissance of dining in Louisville and Restaurant Row on Bardstown, many eccentric old women ran similar stores which never quite made it. Many odd things had already occurred prior to my experience, including utensils and pans falling from hooks in the kitchen directly behind you as you passed beneath them for no reason. There was also a female server, who was also a stripper, who claimed to have been pushed in the back as she went down the stairs by no one. Our theory concerning this was that Matilda was angry at having a hussy on the premises. At the top of these stairs, which were quite steep, you turned around to enter the stockroom at the first door on the right. Further down the landing, narrow hall, was the bathroom at the end, and the office through a separate door on the right as well. The stockroom and office were directly over the kitchen. The stockroom connected to the office through an arched doorway which was blocked by two upright freezers, so you could see in between them into the office, but you could not squeeze through. One early afternoon, I got to the restaurant before anyone else. I was in the stockroom changing into my work clothes, and as I was pulling on my stinky, blue work slacks, I heard a loud, repetitive squeaking noise coming from the office. I peeked between the freezers and saw the office chair behind the desk rocking back and forth as if someone invisible was really giving it a workout. As I tried to take this in, the bare light bulb hanging above the office desk, which was previously off, became extremely bright as if over-energized and exploded. I made it down the stairs with my pants still around my ankles. My bosses, Lisa and Randall, a married couple, had arrived by this time, so I pulled my pants up before they saw my underwear. Lisa asked what was wrong, that I looked really scared. I told them what happened, and so Randall went up and confirmed that the bulb was still screwed into its socket, but not turned on. Still scared, I went up to see whether I was nuts, and the bulb was still in one piece as Randall unscrewed the busted bulb. With a pair of pliers, I looked at the chair, which sat completely still, as it seemingly laughed in my face. At least the bulb busting had actually occurred. I worked there for a little while longer, and I never had such a similar, concrete experience. Many years later, the building had become a new age spa, and I got up the gumption to ask them if they had ever had any strange experiences happen upstairs in the back. The woman I asked, who had been somewhat friendly up to this point, became cold and looked at me stonily as she denied anything else ever occurring. Am I going insane? I live in Sydney, NSW, in a reasonably modern apartment, which I have been renting with my partner for about 6 months now. I think it is also important to note that my partner has not witnessed anything out of the ordinary. In fact, she is quite the skeptic and thinks that I am borderline crazy for the little I have told her. I guess you could say that I noticed things about 2 months ago. Lying in bed about 11 p.m., I heard the tap in the bathroom begin to drip. After a few moments of debating whether or not I could tolerate the noise, I decided to get up and solve the problem. When I entered the bathroom, I was quite shocked to discover that the tap was not dripping. It was not even wet. I checked the shower and the laundry. Nothing telling myself that fatigue had played a cruel trick, I crept back into bed, curled up to my partner, and fell slowly off to sleep. I did not think much more on this until a few days later when I was sitting on my balcony. As I was home alone, I was taking some me time by sitting in the sun with a cigarette and a cup of tea. As I was just getting relaxed, I saw out of the corner of my eye someone moving in the lounge room. Freaking out that it was my partner, I quickly put out flicked cigarette and ducked inside to see why my partner was home early. The first thing I noticed was that my lounge room was quite cold. I called out to my partner, but there was no answer. I sensed very strongly that I was not alone in the apartment, but it became clear very quickly that I was still alone. At this point, I started to freak out just a bit when I told my partner upon her return. She just laughed it off, said that I was overworked and I need to take a break. The following night, as I was brushing my teeth before bed, I could swear that I started to hear some kind of guttural growl coming from I don't know where. I quickly ran into the bedroom to ask my partner if she could hear it. She said that she couldn't, gave me a weird look, and then went back to reading her book. Annoyed, I tried to source out the noise, but to no avail. Within about 5 minutes it became quite faint, then disappeared altogether. These are just the start of my experiences in this place. I have no idea what is going, and like I said, my partner thinks I am going nuts.
An unexpected playmate. This happened when I was about 5 or 6 years old. I was in my room sleeping and I woke up feeling wide awake. When I looked at the clock in my room, it was 12. I was extremely surprised it was that late for some odd reason. I had a strange feeling to look on the floor. There she was, a little girl in the fetal position. At first I thought it was my little sister, but when I looked again, I noticed there was a glowing light all around her. She had pigtails and a bonnet on. I was too frightened to move at all. I quickly hid under the covers, afraid to take a second peek at her, but when I did, she was standing by my closet and gave me a little grin. I wanted to scream for my mum, but I was frozen. I was afraid that if I got up and ran to her room she would grab me, so I stayed under my covers for the rest of the night. I think the little girl is stuck in my room, not able to leave, because right now as I'm writing this, I feel like she's looking over my shoulders reading this. It's cold in my room, but it's mostly from the air conditioning. Now I am 14 years old and I haven't seen the little girl ever since that night, but that doesn't stop me from feeling that I'm being watched. Plus I have another spirit. I'm worried about my Nana who died 2 years ago.